Hey guys, welcome back. I feel like a classic theory this week, so I'm touching on one I've been meaning to bring up for a bit. You guys are familiar with the hero Shade, right? He appears in Twilight Princess and helps the new Link out, teaching him cool sword techniques after howling a few past melodies from the series. Yeah, they sure went hard on the whole wolf theme in this game, but hey, the HD remake came with a really cool amiibo, so there is that. Anyhow, the important aspect involving him is that he howls songs with the new hero, and given who the hero Shade is, one of those songs doesn't make sense. So kick back and relax while I walk you through it. Part 1. The Hero Shade. Let's do a quick rundown of who the hero Shade is and why he is so important. At the end of Ocarina of Time, the hero of time was given a chance to relive his childhood by Princess Zelda, and so he appeared back in Hyrule. Because of his connection to the Triforce of Courage in the future, his arrival in the past caused the relic to separate in the Sacred Realm as courage was drawn to him, and so the symbol appeared on his hand. Link knew all about Ganondorf's nefarious schemes, and so he snuck into the castle and met with Princess Zelda as he did before. With the Triforce of Courage as definitive proof to his claims, they exposed Ganondorf's evil scheme, which would lead to the Gerudo War. Link was still a 10-year-old boy, no soldier of war, and in possession of 1/3 of the Holy Relic. While the boy was setting out to go on a quest to find his friend, Princess Zelda entrusted him with the Ocarina of Time. It is my belief that the royal family was taking advantage of Link's journey to safeguard the Triforce of Courage. See if Ganondorf won the war, or managed to somehow steal the Triforce of Wisdom. By having Link out there with the Triforce of Courage and the means to manipulate time, they knew he could survive long enough to become the hero and draw the Master Sword. It was a worst case scenario that fortunately never happened. Anyhow, Link would go on an adventure and end up in Termina. There he would end up saving them from an impending disaster of a falling moon. Sometime after saving their world, he would return to Hyrule and become a knight for the kingdom. While he was happy to serve his kingdom, there was a bitterness in him over never being known as the hero that he was, a situation likely kept quiet by the royal family to conceal the actual placement of the Triforce of Power. Fundamentally though, this is what happens when you save the future and live in the past. Nobody knows who you are or what you did. It's not clear how the hero of time died, but it seems like a violent one given the damage to his armor and missing eye. He would continue to exist as a Stalfos and become the hero Shade. About 100 or so years later, when the next chapter of the Hyrule fantasy played out, he would pass on his skills and knowledge to the new hero, and hopefully he would find some rest. What he passed on is the subject of debate today, not so much the advanced sword skills that speak for themselves, but something that might be far more important, the songs that he howls with the hero. Part 2. The Hero Shade's Songs. The hero of Twilight encounters the hero Shade a total of 7 times, each time as a wolf. When you encounter one of the howling stones, a melody can be heard due to the wind whistling through them. When Link howls the melody, the hero Shade responds to the howls also appearing in a wolf form, and together the two howl a duet of the melody. It's rather splendid to listen to. Take a listen. There are 7 songs in total. They are the Song of Healing, a Requiem of Spirit, Prelude to Light, Zelda's Lullaby, the Ballad of Gales, the Goron's Lullaby, and the Twilight Princess main theme. I need to bring up that Zelda's Lullaby isn't taught by a Sheikah howling stone, but rather a royal family stone at the start of the Sacred Grove. The hero Shade doesn't respond to this one, but that might be because the Skull Kid shows up immediately to ambush Link. This ambush might be some protection put in place to guard the Master Sword. Perhaps the hero Shade asked his old friend to guard the location and attack or test anybody who interacted with the stone. Regardless, this stone was clearly established by the royal family, and the melody learned from it is used later on to access the ruins of the Temple of Time. Given the hero Shade's past, it makes sense that he would respond to most of these songs. 5 of them come from Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time, games he was literally the main character in. The Twilight Princess main theme I'm giving a pass on because it is this game, and there isn't anything saying that the song doesn't have some significance to him. Perhaps it too has a mystic power we simply don't know about. He doesn't respond to Zelda's lullaby as I already outlined, but it's clear that he would know it given how much he used it in Ocarina of Time. The final song, the Ballad of Gales, however, stands out. You see, the Ballad of Gales is from The Wind Waker, and I double-checked, this song is that. Have a listen. Now granted, it is a bit more drawn out, but it is clearly the same song. Given that the events of Wind Waker take place in another timeline, at a point in time beyond when the hero Shade was there, it raises the question of how he knows it. To me, this seems like an error or an oversight. So now we have a mystery on our hands, which means it's time to speculate. Before we get to that though, are you enjoying the video? If so, a like and subscribe would go a long ways to showing that. Special thanks to my channel supporters for making my channel possible. Now, back to the theory. Part 3. A Song Out of Place. There are 2 potential explanations I've come up with, and I'm going to walk you through them. The first one is simply that this is a mistake. You see, the Ballad of Gales is from another timeline, considering it was the hero of Winds who learned it sometime later from Cyclos. In that game, the song would summon a cyclone to transport Link around the Great Sea. I could see the creators of Twilight Princess merely including past songs from the series as a type of Easter egg without really thinking about the context of where they came from. However, when I think about the selection of other songs, I find it difficult to accept that they were chosen randomly, or because one person just happened to really like them. As tempting as it is to say this is a mistake, it feels like there is more here to rule that out. When I started this video, I was legitimately leaning in that direction, but as I worked on it more, the other alternatives seemed more likely, so let's move on. The next and more likely possibility is that the song came about independently before it was committed to a howling stone. The stones themselves are not necessarily tied to howling, they merely reproduce the melody when wind blows through them. My point being is that while Link does howl songs represented by them, that may simply be because howling is what he has available to him, or I guess, that strange grass whistle thing when he's in his Hylian form. I digress. Regardless of how Link chooses to produce the melody, it is clear that the songs were purposely created and placed here by somebody, which means that the Ballad of Gales exists in this timeline branch as something more than an Easter egg. This song has mystic properties as it would summon cyclones, and so we should talk about the fundamental nature of these songs, which is that they're not exactly songs at their core, but more like magic spells. Allow me to explain. There are fundamental laws put in place of this world going back to its creation, with the goddess Nehru making this world's physics the very rules in which things work. In those rules, the notes, when combined with magic, be it innate to individuals like we see with the Hero of Time and others, or when used by objects that contain it, those notes then produce a magical effect. In the case of the songs in Ocarina of Time, most of them were fast travel to specific locations. but some were implied to have a deeper, mysterious power to them, such as the royal melody dubbed Zelda's Lullaby. Of course, the Song of Time itself has clear power over time, but only when fueled by a person or instrument that has the power of time in them, such as a certain ocarina made from time shift stones. As such, we end up having a series of magic spells that use the rules of the world to create effects. It just so happens that these spells end up sounding musical in nature, and thus they could conveniently be called songs by their creators. Following this logic, we can see how different people could independently come up with the same song, perhaps similar to how different isolated cultures in our world came up with universal concepts of mathematics independently of each other. This would explain how Cyclos could have the song, and yet it could be developed by others in this timeline. They simply were investigating the means of manipulating the wind and stumbled upon the same sequence of notes, a sequence that produced an effect they were looking for, the song that we now call the Ballad of Gales. So with that, I've established how the song could come about here in the child timeline. However, it doesn't solve the underlying mystery of how the hero Shade learned it. He clearly knows it and responds to the hero of Twilight when howling it. Well, I have a solution for that, so let's get to it. Part 4. The Composers. I stated that these songs came about independently of each other, and I have an example of that. Consider that we have seen two instances of the Song of Storms coming about in just such a way. Famously in Ocarina of Time, when Link learns it as a result of him doing it as a child, to then take that knowledge and perform the act that would end up teaching him the song. In Majora's Mask, we would see that the song was developed by a version of the composer brothers, Flat and Sharp, and thus the mechanism of these songs and their effects exist on a more fundamental level in the world. In fact, the composer brothers could be at the very core of this mystery involving the Ballad of Gales. For those of you unaware, they were a pair of Sheikah who died a little before the start of Ocarina of Time. They were tasked with researching the bloodline and power of the royal family, and specifically given the Ocarina of Time in order to discover its secrets. The songs we learned through the game were likely created, or rather discovered, by them and their experiments. Their ghosts explain their story to us in the graveyard, how they were captured by Ganondorf to extract their secrets. Specifically, he was after the Song of Time, as that was needed to access the secret realm from the Temple of Time. These two brothers, however, discovered other songs in their research and recorded them, a good deal of which Zelda knows and passes on to Link as Sheik. So how does this relate to the Ballad of Gales? It's rather simple. That was one of the songs they discovered. As for passing the melodies down and the hero's Shade learning them, it's my conclusion that after the events of Ocarina of Time, their songs were made into the howling stones we see. Perhaps there are even more of them hidden around the kingdom that we simply don't see throughout the course of Twilight Princess. It's hard to say. I like to think that each of these songs and their stones were left in the locations where fast travel points might be. The song Prelude to Light in Ocarina of Time, for example, would teleport Link to the Temple of Time. In Twilight Princess, that stone is located right outside the Secret Grove, where the ruins of the Temple of Time are. There is one more thing of note that strongly suggests the Ballad of Gales was created by the composer brothers. I mentioned earlier that the stone for Zelda's Lullaby was created by the royal family. Well, it also has a Triforce symbol on it. It is the only stone that bears that symbol that we see in the game. The others, including the one for Ballad of the Gales, clearly and proudly bears the emblem of the Sheikah. It would seem that after the untimely deaths of the composer brothers, their work was memorialized in the creation of the Howling Stones. Considering that the hero Shade responds to them, it seems more than likely that he merely came upon the stone in his travel and learned its melody that way. Or perhaps he even played a hand in creating the stones. Either way, it seems more than plausible this or a similar reason is how he knows the Ballad of the Gales, and why he responds to it. Thanks for watching the video. It was nice to touch on a classic theory and break away from Tears of the Kingdom content. Next week, I'm planning a special video for Valentine's Day, so stay tuned for that. Consider subscribing to the channel so you don't miss out. And if you like this video, give it a like to show me that I should put out more like this. As usual, I have to give a big thank you to my channel supporters. Without their direct contributions to me, I wouldn't be able to keep this going. If you like what I do and want to help me out, please consider joining my channel members or pledging to my Patreon. The link is in the description. Those who do will gain access to my Discord where we can talk more directly about upcoming topics, as well as see plenty of my behind the scenes footage. Oh, and talk general Zelda stuff, of course. My community is still growing, and I hope that you will join it. That's all I have for you today, guys. Be safe and may the way of the hero lead to the Triforce.